Oops, where'd my share go? All right, good morning, good morning, good morning. For those of you who just joined, happy Monday. Happy Monday. Let me get this being the view that I want to see. And come back to that one in a minute. All right. All right. That's a couple of people who just came in. So good morning again. Good morning. Good morning. All right. So this week, today and Wednesday, we'll review some things. Your exam is all multiple choice. It's going to be on Thursday. And that's the final exam for you for first and fifth period on December the 12th. Time is passing very quickly. All righty. So what I want you to look at when you're reviewing in Canvas, and I'm going to give you an abridged study guide to look at, not really a study guide, but I'm going to go over some things with you. Um, Focus on okay, what are the different specialties? Like, for example, the question off of this one that we're going to look, I'm going to look at these two today. What are the different specialties and techniques used in crime lab process and evidence? And got somebody else coming. And what are the responsibilities of a forensic crime lab and scientist? Okay, so those are important questions. So we're going to look at those today. But before I go to those pages, I just want to tell you in general, one, be familiar with your vocabulary. That's always, always important. Okay, come on. Again, don't worry about the history so much as know this right here. The Freyer Standard, the DuPont ruling, know that. So read those over in your preparation time. Deductive reasoning is extremely important. Being able to go, you got to be a thinking individual to be a crime scene investigator. You have to be able to look at a scene and be able to deduce what you believe has happened in order to so do this practice activity, but most specifically, know the difference between what is deductive and what is inductive. Okay, so let's look at that for a minute before I switch to the other. Um, so let's look at this word right here. It's a methodology and ways of investigators process all the minute details of a crime scene by gathering information about the crime scene, the victim, the list of suspects that are narrowed, and a process that is detailed, added to the case file, and distinct pictures are formed by what happened. All right. So again, deductive just says I'm looking at what I see in front of me, and I'm collecting all this information, and I have to use this information to create a whole picture. So we kind of did an activity about that earlier, and we actually did two, where you were given a scene and then asked for you to decide based on what evidence was given to you, what do you believe happened? So we did a bedroom scene, and we did the initial crime scene picture at the beginning of the year. So look those over. Look over anything that any of the activities that we've done, because those were practice activities for doing these kinds of things. All right, so go through and play with this so that you okay, let's come back up here. Inductive is using specific details to generalize um, all the elements. Sue has red hair, therefore all people named Sue have red hair, and that's not true. So you can't make inductive reasonings about So inductive is not as good as deductive, okay? So that's generalizations. And you don't want to generalize. With solving a crime, you want to be as specific as possible. Remember, the way you solve the crime is how you're going to take the case to court. And if you do generalizations, the judge will probably throw it out. Okay, so if you want to have your victim, so your suspect definitely nailed to rights, you want to make sure that you have as many specific uh, clues as possible and not generalize things, because generalized things, the other guy's lawyer can say, well, that's not like in that statement, Sue has red hair, so all people named Sue have red hair. And they'll say, well, anybody could have done that because they all look like that. And so we don't want that kind of evidence to go to court. Remember, all of this is about, I need to gather enough information to go to take this person to court. That's our end game. Still admitting, folks. All right, so look through that. Um, okay, I got almost everybody in. So I'm gonna stop sharing for a moment, take attendance, and then come back and share another document with you. And one of them is we're gonna look at this in particular, crime scene specialist. So make sure you know who they are. And that's what I'm gonna be focusing on today. But again, make sure that you are looking at vocabulary. All of this unit one that we did at the beginning is foundational information. So we need to know that. We talked about the different um, types of crime scene spaces, quadrants, and things of that nature. Go back and look at this. Okay. Know what these lab um, what do we want to call them? Ways to collect these agency ways to collect evidence, so we can have physical evidence, biological fingerprints, documents, photography, toxicology, evidence collection, and voice analysis. If somebody left a message on the answering machine, put messages on your phone. Nowadays, they can pull up your phone records and listen to your conversations and text messages. So, technology has come a long way. All right, so look those things over. Just go ahead and click on each of these and see what they're talking about, and I will come back as soon as I take attendance. Mm, All right, and remember, I do attendance by looking at GoGuardian. So if for some reason that you are working on another computer and I can't see you in GoGuardian, you need to let me know. Otherwise, you might get marked absent. I should see when I look at GoGuardian, right, like I'm looking right now, I should see everybody in Canvas. Everybody in Canvas. I shouldn't see being idle for the last 10 minutes. While I'm doing that, also remember that Friday is the last day, and they put it on the portal on your Canvas page. Friday's the last day for all late work. We don't have any new assignments Next week we'll probably do some activities, but they won't be considered new assignments. But everything that needs to be graded needs to be in by Friday. Okay. It's also going to receive because I gave no lates as of next last week. So if it's just sent, if you turn it in this week, it's gonna have a late if it's late. Things that we did recently, maybe not so much, but if it's other things, I would prefer that you do an assignment and I will take off those late. I will mark it late, but I won't let the Canvas do because it's some of these assignments are so late. Canvas gives you a 0 even when I give you a grade. So you need to make sure that check your grade book and make sure that you don't have any zeros. But I prefer that you turn in something rather than have a 0. Okay. That's how I can help you improve your grade. Turn in something rather than a 0. All right. That being said, got 2 people absent. All right. Jada, are you with us? Okay. Again, if you're having computer issues, please text me. Okay. All right. As soon as I finish this attendance, I get right back with you. Also, if you do a late assignment, email me so that I go back and look for it because I'm looking for the current ones. But if I have to go back any distance to look for an assignment, you need to let me know. And it's only for this quarter. I can't go back last quarter. Mhm. Okay. All right. So I pulled up a kind of a summary page, and if I can make a copy of this and I'll put it in a module assignment for you. But this is kind of a snapshot of everything that you need to review. So let's start with the role of the forensic specialist. So you do need to know that. Um, they are called evidence technicians, crime scene technicians, or they can have another title, and they are engaged in examining the scene of the crime or other incidents and play very specific roles in the criminal justice. Like I said, the bottom line is we're collecting all this and we're trying to prove that whoever the criminal is, we have enough evidence to prove that they did it. Okay, I love when I do attendance and that makes people come to class. All righty. Okay, So we want to, the individuals are expected to, so you always need to know what is their job. They are expected to apply the scientific method of analysis to an examination of a crime scene. All right, so scientific method, if you go back, and I think you all might have done that before I came. So let's go back and look at that for a minute. You had one of these. Um, Let me see if I know one of these had a scientific method in it. Okay, let's go back here and look at that one. Okay, so this one, hopefully you were able to download. This was something that you all did before I came. And so do make sure that you go back. Again, make sure that basic vocabulary, vocabulary, vocabulary. So if you understand what the words mean, you can answer the questions. Okay, so the crime scene is a physical location that where the crime has occurred or suspected to have occurred. All right, you have primary and secondary locations because sometimes it might have happened here and they moved the body, or they went to a second place and they did something else. So all of these things are connected. Um, all right. So know who the suspect is. That's the person you think did the crime. An accomplice, if they had help, alibis, if a statement where the suspect was at the time of the crime, and a motive. So those are the important, the extreme. This slide right here, very important. Okay, be able to identify where the crime scene is, who the suspects are. Um, do they have an alibi? What is their story? And why did they do it? All right, then we have our who's going to look at the crime scene. So and we're going to come back to the slide I was looking at. The first people to arrive on the scene, like I said, all right, everybody's present today. Okay. Again, for our latecomers, we are reviewing. You have a final exam on Thursday. So we are reviewing. We are reviewing. This slideshow is in Canvas. For those of you who might have been napping. All right, this was at the beginning of your the introductory PowerPoint at the beginning of the course. So that's what we're looking at right now. And then we're going to come back to my other little summary. All right, so if you can pull that up and follow along with me, I am just going through that presentation. Again, I didn't go over this with you because y'all did this before I came. All right. So you wanted to, who's the first on the scene? So we talked about who needs to collect what evidence, and we had talked about the names of person who's taking the reports when they get on the scene. Then you have detectives who actually do the interviewing of people, and they check out the crime scene investigation, CIS. For those of you who don't know what CIS is, they got all those programs on TV, CIS, everything. So CIS is crime scene investigation. Okay. Then you have a unit that comes out. They have all the tools and equipment. So that's what the other slide I was showing you earlier, know what do they need to bring? How are they going to collect the specimen? Remember, we talked about there are ways to collect the specimens that have to be properly labeled and secured before to make sure there's no, if you all watch programs like I do, because I love watching these crime scenes, they always talk about evidence tampering and witness tampering, and you have to secure these things so that they know nobody else touched them since it was collected. The bags have to be sealed and dated, and you put your name on it, who put it in there, all that sort of thing. All right, so then you have a criminalist, a person who specializes in identifying the physical evidence. And this is where your deductive reasoning comes in. They do the analyzing of all the evidence that is collected. There are people who they don't have to think about it. Their job is just to collect what is there as carefully as possible. Then it is brought back to someone else, this specialist who is going to look at, and we're going to come down all these other specialists, the pathologists or the medical examiner. So we talked about in your town, you don't have a you have a coroner, you don't have a medical examiner. So we talked about the fact that you actually send the bodies to Atlanta. And then that's where your pathologist, the doctor, is that actually examines the body. But you have your coroner is able to identify the scene, call the time of death, all that sort of thing can be done by the coroner. So you need to know the difference between the coroner and the medical examiner. So all the specialties. So we just did entomology, we did anthropology with the bones, um, that sort of thing. I'm not going to go into careers so much with you on this test, but know the other things. All right, this part. So I'm going to take you back to, I think that's the end of that. All right, but you have this presentation at the beginning of your module. So make sure you look at that. All right, so back to the thing I was showing you earlier. Okay, so the specialist has to be knowledgeable in a variety of areas related to evidence collecting, to collect and preserve and identify the evidence, provide professional testimony. In other words, they're the person who has to be available when the case comes to court. You have to actually go to court and speak as a specialist about what you saw, when you saw it, and how you saw it. Provide guidance for other police officer personnel. They might need to do further investigation. So based on what you saw, you might need to tell them, go back and look some more, look for something else, because everything, what you see right in front of you doesn't add up. So they're the ones that try to make sense, get as complete a picture of the scene as possible. All right, the role of physical evidence. So you need to know what physical evidence is. Those are what we call tangible things that you can touch. All right, what things can you actually pick up, and not something that you imagine in your head, physical things that you, the gun, the knife, the blood on the scene, those are physical, tangible evidence. All right. So, and we need those to provide proof of what kind of crime was committed, when the crime was committed. Um, Identify suspects, like piece of clothing might have been left behind. We were talking about DNA. There might be skin under the victim's nails that they can take and do DNA testing, all those kinds of things that will, as it says, support the suspect, or look for witnesses. The witnesses are tangible um, testimony. And create what they call it says powerful interrogation tool. So you need to have enough documentation that when you bring the victim in, again, if you've watched crime scene, you take them into the little interrogation room, the officer always has this folder, and in that folder, they have enough information to present to this suspect to let them know, we've got all of this information against you. Give me a reason why it's not you. So that's what you provide, a powerful interrogation tool. All right. There's no Fifth Amendment protection against incrimination by physical evidence unless verbal statements or oral admissions. The individual involved in a crime investigation can be forced through the court order to provide samples of hair, blood, fingerprints, speech, handwriting, or evidence of other personal traits. Okay, so that you need to remember that they can refuse to talk to you. So that's your fifth. I know what the Fifth Amendment right is, but that doesn't protect them against providing evidence. Okay, they need to be able to dispute the evidence. They can say whatever they want to say, but if the evidence says otherwise, there's no Fifth Amendment rights against that. Okay. All right. All right, looking at our crime scene. And we talked about that earlier, about the primary scene and secondary scene. Okay. And then we kind of talked about all of this as well. Okay. Crime scene protection. So we did an activity at the beginning of the year with this as well. So first of all, you have to protect the crime scene. We cordon it off and make sure that nobody else walks through it and disturbs it. And you want protecting the crime scene means that you're not going to disturb the evidence. You need to leave it as close to the way the scene happened when you met it as possible. And then we talked about the first officer on the scene doing a crime report. All right, so they want to assess legal requirements for crime uh, scene search. So you might, if it's in a house or something, you might need to go to the judge and get permission to go in and do uh, deep searches. But initially, they can go in and just look at the scene. Any certain documents you need permission to get from them, but that's why you hear people saying, I need a court order. So the court has to say it's okay to go in and collect all of the things that they need to collect. Okay. Establish a staging or work area where you can collect the information and not have things scattered all over the place. Assess a need for additional personnel. Everybody who shows up at first may not be the expert you need. So decide what experts are needed and call them in, and then do a final release of the scene and follow up with evidence and inventory and lab submissions. All right. The things the responding officer should do. So all of these, look at all these questions that you should be asking if you're at the crime scene. What is to believed to be the nature of the incident? Was the incident discovered? How many police officers or personnel were at the scene? What were the actions of the officers at the scene? Was the building searched? Were the doors open? Were the lights on or off? Was the evidence moved? Was the scene contaminated? What scene contamination is known to have occurred from the emergency responders discovering the accident? So in other words, if somebody arrived there before the other officers came, what might have been disturbed uh, from the original scene, the way they found the bodies or found the evidence? Who were the persons at the scene? Can you identify them? Do they have IDs on them, or is it something that you have to um, ask witnesses? Do you know these people? Where are the persons from the scene? Where has anyone been taken to the hospital? Is the officer assigned to the person at the hospital? So if somebody was not quite dead, and a crime scene, you can still have living people. Everybody doesn't have to be dead. So if you send somebody to the hospital, somebody needs to go with them. All right. Is there any other significant information to provide? So again, you have to be very, very, very observant of all things in the area. Like they have doors open, closed, locked, lights, signs of entry, lights off or on, odors that you might smell. Um, were the blinds open or closed? Was there mail on the table, mail in the box, things are collected on the floor? Is there a car in the driveway, car in the garage? Is anything look like it's been disturbed? Like the beginning of the year, the bedroom you looked at had stuff all over the floor. So what was disturbed? How was it disturbed? What did it form a pattern? Temperature. And we talked about uh, rigor mortis and all those things. So to know what the normal body temperatures are. Statements made by the victims. All right, coming back over here. What is, so looking at when you do preliminary walkthrough, what is the nature of the crime? How many persons are involved? What are the actions of the offenders? How did they leave the scene? Is this a primary or secondary scene? So I said all these questions that have to be asked and very specific. All right, we talked about search patterns. How do you we had grid search, strip search, spiral search, zone search, know all those different search patterns. Packaging and handling. And I just did this because this is all in one spot, but you do have Canvas units on all of these things. All right, so this is just a list of all of the things that a report might have for you to be able to, and you don't have one of these, but just know that the crime scene, I think you might have. I think earlier I sent a sample of what the crime scene report would look like, and proper labeling and clean techniques, firearms, how to handle them and package them and label them. Alrighty, and that's all I'm going to use this document for. All right, any questions so far? Like I said, most of this is just, that was just a summary of some of the things that you have in your modules. Okay, let's, so a lot of that was all in this first unit and second unit. Documentation, evidence collecting. All right, we did a practice crime scene report, so that's in your module. So we did this. And then you had a list of all the things that should be in your crime scene report. So this is in the module. Mm. All right, and then bring us up to our anthropology and looking at the activity we did with the bones. Specifically know how bones, and I'm not going to have any activities for you, but specifically know how the different bones, the skull, the femur, what can they tell you about the victim? Okay, so know those things. Mm, all right, definitely go back and review all of these things that have activities. All right, go back and look at this, legal issues. Um, Definitely go through and practice this one. Okay. Um, wrong with that? Oh, that was the test. Next. Why is it doing that? All right, don't worry about microscopes so much. Just basically need to know um, why this last one, why microscopes are important. So again, do not worry about going through being able to label a microscope. Um, so we're going to skip that part too. Okay. Mm, So for example, I'm not going to ask you which microscope would you use to look at whatever, whatever. Not going to do that. Okay, so just know, whoops, know this right here. Okay, microscopes are used to evaluate nearly every type of physical evidence in some way, making them a necessity and versatile tool in the crime lab. That much you need to know, but I'm not going to ask you, I'm not going to do that. Um, and not doing that. Like I said, just basically know that they are important. Um, I might give you a, a question that specifically asks you what tool might you use at a crime scene. So you need to know whether it is you're going to be using a microscope or some other tool to investigate the scene. All right, so that brings us to looking at remains. Um, Phases of decomposition. Make sure you know that. Estimating time of death. Those are important. So we want to talk about all the mortises, rigor mortis, livor mortis, all of those. All right, so this is what I was saying. Make sure that you know this chart. Oops, this chart right here. What does it tell you? What does the teeth tell you? What does the cranium tell you? Um, don't worry about microstructure. Um, okay, so yes, go through and look at things like that. We looked at a video that actually talked about coloration of the skin and decomposition. So it might be helpful to look at that again. In fact, if I can pull it up here for this one, make sure this is the important one in this section. Make sure you know this one. So rigor mortis, alga mortis, know that. Um, Process of decay, that one you need to know. All right, we talked about this. Um, all right, so they have a stages of decomposition review. Review that. Review that. Review this one. So do the end wrap-ups on all of these units, and that will help you focus in on what you specifically need to know. Again, don't worry about the wrap-up on the microscope. Just know that, a microscope is an important tool. But do the wrap-ups on the other units. So do this one. What's the next module? I'm not going to ask a lot of questions about entomology because you just did a very thorough test on that. So there won't be a whole lot of questions on that one. But all the previous ones, make sure you do this one. Okay. I will come out here and just skip. It's easier to skip to the end this way. Okay, we're wrapping it up over here. All right. So there's five major. So think about it as about 5 questions per group. And what are the main ideas in each group? This is the wrap. Okay, so the wrap up for autopsy. So look at the wrap ups because that's more than likely where the questions will come from. Practice these activities, these wrap up activities. Okay. All right, I'm going to stop talking and let you actually go through and read some of these. Hopefully, you'll actually be doing that. The exam again is on Thursday, so lose class time for class activities. It's a lot to read, it's a lot to remember. So please use this time to do that. Ask any questions specifically that you don't understand. But again, use the wrap up at the end of these activities. So again, the modules that we're covering. All right, so you can do that introductory PowerPoint. That's nice. All right, so we have this one. Intro to Criminal Justice, that's 1. Crime Scene Investigation, that's 2. Brief Microscope. Human Remains, 4. Autopsy Medical Examiners, 5. And actually there's 6. And Anthropology. All right, so do the wrap-ups for those. We did entomology, but I'm not going to ask any questions about that. Okay. All right, so when we come back, we'll start from um, this organic analysis. Okay. All right, and if you haven't done the bones activity, if you can't, if for some reason you could not manipulate the skeleton, that's okay, because that's just, do you know where all the bones go? And that's okay if you couldn't do that. The important part about that is to examine the evidence that they've given you so that you can determine whether it's a male or a female. How were you able to tell whether it was a male or female skull, pelvic, length of the femur? How were you able to determine age? So they gave you, so you might want to go back and look at that PowerPoint that you did as well, because that was helpful. Let's see if I can pull that one up when I say that. So the chart at the end of that, the is the better part of that grade. Okay, make sure that you have analyzed everything and you put it, for those of you who haven't turned that in, make sure that the chart at the end is complete and you're supposed to use that. What you actually did and compare it to the information that they gave you so you can compare um, or identify which bones belong to which person. Okay. Alrighty. Let's stop sharing for a minute. I might try to pull up one of those videos. All right, I'm going to go ahead and play this one. So all the videos that we've watched are in the playlist, but I'm going to play this one. Why is it doing that? Interesting. I'm trying to pull the video up separately, but it's embedded in the class. I want to come up by itself. Here it is. Okay. Let's Okay, I'm gonna get it back to the beginning in a minute and get you some sound. All right, this is for all the mortises. It froze on me. Okay, I unmuted it, but I still can't hear anything.
Your favorite crime drama show. A murder has taken place. The police and forensic experts are looking for clues to catch the killer. One of the most important clues to solving the crime is determining when the victim died. The expert looks at the body, checks the body temperature, and examines the body's position. After a thorough examination, the expert then states the approximate time of death. The question is, how does a forensic expert calculate the time of death? The time of death is not the exact time that a person died. It is instead a time frame in which the person could have died based on the evidence presented. Forensic scientists calculate the time of death using many techniques. Their first go-to method is to study the physical changes that happen in the body after death. So what are these signs? There are 4 post-mortem signs that tell a great deal about time of death. These are physical, observable changes that occur in the body in the first 24 to 48 hours after the heart stops beating and the nervous system shuts down. The first sign: pallor mortis. As the heart stops beating, the circulation of blood throughout the body decreases. The organs farther away from the heart, like the skin, stop receiving blood. This gives a corpse the pale, lifeless appearance that we associate with death. This paleness, which appears 15 to 30 minutes after death, is called pallor mortis. It is one of the first identifiable signs of death. The second sign, algor mortis. Humans are homeothermic, which means that we maintain a constant internal body temperature. This constant average temperature is maintained by balancing the heat produced in the body with the heat lost. The circulatory system is an important mechanism by which humans maintain an average internal temperature of 37 degrees Celsius. Heat is produced primarily through the various metabolic reactions happening in our body. This produced heat is dissipated from deeper organs, such as the liver and brain, to the outer parts, such as the skin, through the movement of blood. Under the first layer of skin, the epidermis, lies a network of capillaries. These capillaries allow heat produced by the body to be released into the air. Without the heart beating, blood cannot distribute heat and regulate body temperature. This leads to the body temperature reaching equilibrium with the external temperature. If the temperature is less than 37 degrees Celsius outside in the first hour after death, then the temperature of the body will decrease by 2 degrees and then continue to decrease by 1 degree every hour. Algor mortis is not an accurate way to back calculate the time of death, however, as it varies based on external conditions, such as weather, and is affected by whether the corpse was wearing clothes or not. The third sign, rigor mortis. This sign is one of the most important signs when it comes to determining the time of death. Rigor mortis, which literally means stiff death, is the contraction of the muscles in the body after death. Before rigor mortis, all the muscles relax in the step called primary flaccidity. This happens because, after death, brain activity decreases until it completely stops. Without the brain giving muscles a signal to contract, the muscles remain in a relaxed state. Primary flaccidity lasts for 1 to 2 hours after death. The first muscles to relax are those in the eyelids, fingers, and toes. In this stage, the corpse usually releases urine and gas, as muscles controlling urination and passing gas are relaxed. Primary flaccidity is followed by rigor mortis. Muscles stiffen up in rigor mortis because of cells being broken down by digestive enzymes. This cellular breakdown is a normal part of body decomposition and is called autolysis. The breakdown of cells makes holes in the boundary of the cell and its compartments. This releases calcium ions from the separate compartment within the cell where they are stored. This calcium is crucial for initiating contraction. During normal living conditions, a signal from the nervous system triggers the calcium to release from its compartment. Another factor in rigor mortis is the lack of ATP, the energy molecule to blood cells. Once calcium is released from its muscle contraction, it's a protein molecule that moves around the cell, binds and activates, while the protein from the skeleton to the cell. Once the myosin binds and activates, it uses the energy from ATP to pull the protein and move the muscle shorter and shorter interval. Immediately after death, muscle still produce ATP. Muscle preserves the glucose and the metabolic regulated, which keeps down the excess oxygen to provide ATP. ATP is used by the muscle contraction, but the muscle needs ATP to relax. This means that the active myosin will remain active until the muscle is completely decomposed. Rigor mortis starts in the same order the primary flaccidity does, with the eyes and fingers, and slowly progresses the rest of the body. Rigor mortis reaches its peak 12 hours postmortem. After that, the muscles must begin to relax in the same order where they begin contraction. After rigor mortis comes the second cycle of relaxation, called secondary flaccidity, which is due to muscle degeneration. Digestion enzymes break down proteins in the muscle, including the muscle tract relationship. Forensic experts use this progression muscle relaxation system to estimate the time of death. They will check to see which parts of the body are stiff and make an estimate based on what time. It is more reliable algorithms as it isn't as affected by external conditions. The fourth sign, liver mortis. After death,
pause it because it's clear on my end, but it's not clear on your end. But what I can tell you is this is in your playlist, and you can probably play it better on your side than watching it through me. How about that? Okay, but do watch this one again so that you know, because you do need, there's a matching question so that you know which all of these are done when. Okay, so I'm looking in the chat and everybody's having trouble hearing it. It's either choppy or it's messing up or it's doing whatever. And it's not doing that on my side, but it's you all need to hear this. So you need to make sure that you can find it. So again, I got this off of you. And that might be the issue, is the way I'm playing it from the playlist. The other one that you should look at, and there's quite a few of them. They're all very, very short. So you can just go through and look at all of them. Let's see if this one's any better. There's a question about this as well. Flag, not you.
You're not a child, you're a man. So stop wearing so many layers to go outside and get the bearskin tactical hoodie for.
It's cold. We need all the layers you can. Then with Georgia weather, you need layers. It's cold in the morning and hot by the time you get out of school.
Hey guys, so we have 2 minutes on the terms medical examiner and coroner, and sometimes they are often misused or people think that they're.
Now this one is choppy for me. It's pausing. Let's see if she straightens up.
Interchangeable. So in our country, every state dictates whether they're going to have a medical examiner system or a coroner system, and some have this gray area version of both. So within the states, then sometimes they break down on each county determines what they're going to do inside of it. So medical examiners and coroners investigate deaths, and they investigate certain types of death. The first type is if somebody is not under a physician's care and they die of a disease or sometimes a natural cause that looks like maybe not a natural cause. They have to investigate why they showed up at the emergency room and died suddenly, or maybe why they died at home suddenly, and they have to determine then if there's foul play or if it was a disease that they need to be concerned about or if it was natural causes. They also investigate if there's an accident, a suicide, a homicide. So anything that looks abnormal or suspicious, the medical examiner and coroner or coroner are called in to investigate it and to look into it. So their report is going to house certain items. It's going to house a cause of death. It's going to house the autopsy and the drug analysis that is done for levels of anything that is in the person's system when they died, and will have a circumstances leading to the death, whether it's natural or whether it's homicide or whether it's suicide. They'll have all of that in the report then as well. So a medical examiner is a medical doctor that specializes most of the time in pathology as a pathologist, and they are the ones who do the autopsy on the person. They are appointed and hired by the state or the county to do that for all of the suspicious deaths within the county. And sometimes a medical examiner will cover multiple counties, or, you know, if it's a small state, there may be just one in a state, depending on the size of the state. So the coroner system has an elected official that the people elect. So this may be, in some states it's required that it's a medical doctor, but in others, anybody can be the coroner. So the farmer down the road, the person who owns the drugstore in town, stay-at-home mom from the community, anyone can be a coroner with no medical history. A lot of times a coroner system is in place because maybe it's a very rural area, and so you're 2 hours away from a large hospital, or your resources are very spread out, and so you don't have a medical examiner system, cannot set up a medical examiner system close to you because there's not enough resources to do so. If an autopsy is then deemed needed, the coroner will have the person sent to the medical examiner, sometimes several hours away, for the autopsy to be completed. So essentially, the coroner's job is declaring the person dead, identifying the person, gathering their effects and personal items, and then returning them to the next of kin and notifying the next of kin of that death. So you may go from one state to another, and it can be a different from a coroner system to a medical examiner system. And within those states, the coroner and medical examiner could have completely different powers, completely different rules, completely different laws that they have to follow. Even two coroner systems can look completely different. One good example, so like in Georgia, the coroner has the same power as the sheriff. And the coroner is the only person who can technically arrest the sheriff. So you get into some of the legal system components of a coroner as well as the medical and kind of death investigation part with a coroner. So what system is set up in your area? Let me know.
All right, so that's when you had that activity to figure out, what does Muskogee County do? All right, so I'm not going to show any more videos because it's not clear for everybody. So again, those are things that you might want to go back and read, follow up on yourself. And but that's an important one. You do need this, so there'll be questions asking you, what can the coroner do? When do you need the medical examiner? They can both, there's certain things that they both can do, and there's certain things that one can do that the other one cannot. So know the difference between those. Um, I'm trying to go through and look at all the other videos that you should look at. There's one. So there is a video on identifying individuals. You have that one to look at. That's for the anthropology unit. So again, you can just go through and look at some of the videos, and that would be very helpful. So there's about 4 videos in the playlist that you probably should give your attention to. So again, do not spend any time at all on the entomology section. I think that test was thorough enough for you. But do spend some time on the others. There's about 5 questions per unit and it's all multiple choice and matching. All right, we had 2 people come in a little late. The exam is on Thursday, this Thursday. You're reviewing all units except entomology. Any zeros that you might have, you want to work on them. So please, again, use class time now to work on those. If you do an assignment that is extremely late, please let me know. So look at something like a lot of you have zeros for simply sharing your Halloween story in the discussion area. You did not do that. So that's a 0 that you can get rid of and not have any late fees, late fees, late charges assigned to that. Looking at the submissions now, so you do something between now. But actually, class is over. Time flies. All right. So just make sure that you go through all of those things. All right. See you on Wednesday. Have a good day. Email me if you need to.